James Woods married at the age of 78 to a woman who was young enough to be his granddaughter. The most startling aspect of his story, however, is not even that. He lost millions of dollars after the Palisades Fire destroyed his house in 2025, and he disclosed details, music, about his previous relationships. Outrage arose about his 46-year age difference with a former girlfriend. However, fresh information about his private life is even more unsettling. You won't believe what went on behind closed doors during his marriages. Nobody anticipated the true cause of his failed partnerships. On April 18, 1947, James Woods was born in Vernal, Utah, a small hamlet nestled in the northeastern region of the state. Because his father, Gale Peyton Woods, was an intelligence officer in the U.S. Army, the family didn't stay in one location for very long. They always packed up again when his father was reassigned. New homes, new schools, new people. A child found it difficult to adjust when things were constantly changing. His life was somewhat stabilized by music, since his mother, Martha A. Smith, was a preschool administrator. However, the uneasiness of constantly moving was not eliminated by it either. He was also shaped by their Irish-American Catholic heritage, which imbued his early years with customs, laws, and a seriousness that persisted until adulthood. With military discipline on the one hand and Catholic beliefs on the other, the household was rigid. He developed curiosity, quick thinking, and a rebellious streak that continued to expand as a result of those early layers. Then came the turning point in the story. His father had a standard surgery in 1960, but he never returned home. Woods was just 13. The family was ripped apart. He lost the father he and his younger brother, Michael, most admired. His mother remarried Thomas E. Dixon after the funeral, and the two of them relocated to Warwick, Rhode Island, in the hopes that things would start over. However, the financial strain only increased and the emotional void was too great. In order for them to survive, Martha continued to manage her preschool. Later on, Woods would describe how his father's passing left the house feeling empty. How everything appeared more difficult, and how the absence turned into a subtle force that influenced his perspective on the world. In Warwick, music, life was humble and occasionally tense. Funds were limited. Music expectations were high. He was close to the church due to his Catholic background, and he even worked as an altar boy. But that didn't make him immune to grief or the difficulties that awaited him at home. Some support came from his mother's second marriage. Even yet, the family still experienced difficult times. Woods stood out academically due to his reported IQ of 180. However, it also drove him apart from the other children. In the classroom, he was powerful, but in the hallways, he felt alone. Because he believed he had to fill the vacuum left by his father, the pressure to perform well continued growing. Nevertheless, something within him, music, continued to move. He recalled how, as a child, his father read Shakespeare to him. The words became ingrained in his thoughts and enabled him to envision more expansive universes. And he performed well on every test he took thanks to that early exposure. The older he got, the harder he pushed himself. Almost at the top of his class, he graduated from Pilgrim High School in 1965. His mind was restless and keen. In addition to recognizing his genius, teachers also observed his edge. He doubted authority. He questioned the law. He talked rapidly and assuredly. Most individuals couldn't take how sharp his tongue was. They prevented him from fitting in. But they steered him directly into a destiny in which he had to make brave decisions. The foundation for his future on-screen legacy was created by his combination of excellence and resistance. His desire to become a fighter pilot got him admission to the U.S. Air Force Academy in 1964. It was a top-tier program. Only the sharpest and toughest were admitted. And then the dream was dashed by an accident. He cut tendons in his hand and broke, music, a plate glass window. The injury put a stop to all of his plans. At the age of 17, the one ambition he clung to vanished out of thin air. But he wouldn't stop. He resumed his academic pursuits and was awarded a full scholarship to MIT. In addition to pursuing political science, he considered a career as an eye surgeon. However, life had already begun to pull him in a new way. MIT paved the way. After joining Theta Delta Chi, Woods became fully involved in university life. He remained near the top of his year and did well in his studies. However, the theater started luring him in. He jumped into campus productions and joined a theater shop. He moved. He gave the direction. In the same way that he dissected politics and physics, he also dissected characters. His mind was designed to do this. His SAT results demonstrated his intelligence. However, numbers could never provide him with what the stage did. It provided a means for him to let go of the intensity within himself. His early music, academic aspirations gradually gave way to his involvement in theater and fraternity life. The most frequent concept he had was about step-by-step performing. Then everything changed after one discussion. He first met Tim Music Affleck, the stage manager at the Boston Theatre Company, in 1969, just one semester before he was set to graduate. Something about him appealed to Affleck. He had genuine charisma and talent. He advised Woods to quit MIT and go into acting. Woods was already having second thoughts about pursuing a career in politics or medicine. He was struck with the thought. Everyone, including himself, was taken aback by his decision to forego his scholarship and the seemingly secure future. Despite being horrified, his mother encouraged him to pursue a career in acting. He remembered that straightforward statement for years. In 1969, he and his fraternity mate Martin Donovan relocated to New York City, where they immediately plunged into the audition and financial grind. In an attempt to get a job, he worked odd jobs. He had an advantage because of his education. He had a grasp of complicated characters. Just like he used to study equations, he could now evaluate a script. His first notable off-Broadway role was in Borstal Boy in 1970. And he persevered through every challenge that came his way after that. His early career as an actor was a test of music survival. However, he persisted since his hunger would not go away. Even so, it all began much earlier. He made his off-Broadway debut at the Royal Theatre in 1969 in The Penny Wars. The event ran from October 15 to October 18 for just 4 days. He was 22 years old, broke, and living in a small apartment while consuming ramen to make ends meet. His fast-talking manner had to be sharpened because he played 2 minor roles, Dale and Tom Meadows. In the theater world, the play hardly made a sound, but the appropriate individuals perceived his voice's clarity and speed. The first seeds for future responsibilities were sown in music during those brief days. He was then cast in a supporting part in Borstal Boy at the Lyceum Theatre in 1970. The exhibition ran from March 31 to August 1. Woods feigned Britishness to get the role. He infused each scene with genuine feeling. He was seen by critics. He took on side occupations to make ends meet because he was still poor, but his influence increased. During those months, he began to establish his reputation for intensity. He jumped right into the Kettonsville 9 trial in 1971, which was held at the Lyceum. He portrayed draft resistor David Darst in a play inspired by anti-war demonstrations. He stunned listeners with the ferocity with which he delivered each line. This part added another layer to his career path, even though the production and pay were minor. It introduced him to the realm of political theater and influenced his perspective on courage, conflict, and narrative. In 1972, he achieved his first significant accomplishment. On February 21, Moonchildren debuted at the Royal Theatre. On March 4, it came to an end after 16 performances. He played Bob Reddy, a disillusioned and cynical college student. Edward Herrmann, Christopher Guest, and Kevin Music Conway were among the future stars of the cast. Tensions arose backstage for Woods. He got into a fight with Geraldine Page and a disagreement with director Alan Schneider. Nevertheless, he was recognized by the business as more than just another actor vying for attention when he was awarded a Theatre World Award. That was followed by a pivotal event. His agency failed to provide him suitable parts, so he dismissed him when he reached 25, Music. That was dangerous. A lot of actors his age would be desperate to acquire any kind of representation. Woods took a different route. He moved forward by himself. Casting directors were approached by him. He wouldn't depend on someone who didn't have faith in him. It was a wise gamble. He gradually started to have more movie opportunities. There, he made a daring decision and believed he could direct his own career, which led to films like Salvador and The Onion Field. When James Woods starred in The Visitors in 1972, you could sense his sharpness from the very first scene. Despite being new, he carried a weight that was anything but. One of the first genuine Vietnam combat stories, directed by Kazan, it featured fear and regret rather than heroic rhetoric. In 1972, it made its debut. And Woods stood there as Bill Schmidt, a veteran attempting to flee memories, in the midst of that subdued tension. When two former Army friends show up at his farmhouse after being released from military jail, a man's past resurfaces. The New Yorker reported on a true court-martial case in 1969, which served as the basis for the entire narrative. That similar case later influenced War Casualties. Despite it being his debut, Woods' portrayal of Bill had a raw, nervous edge that made it seem as though he had spent years inhabiting the role. Critics observed that the film's darkness made an impression. The movie didn't do well, though. As a result, Woods spent a considerable amount of time in grim supporting parts. However, his ferocious demeanor as Bill Schmidt hinted at what was to come. He then demonstrated how quickly he could take over a scene in a small moment in 1973. Barbara Streisand and Robert Redford starred in the romance drama The Way We Were. In a few minutes, Woods was still able to attract attention. At a political event, he portrayed Frankie McVeigh, an activist who plays poker. Although he hardly had any lines, his posture brought attention to himself. Directors started whispering about him even though it was only his fourth movie. The enthusiasm he exuded never faded into the background. He continued to shine against two huge stars. He climbed out of the theater industry and into more significant film roles thanks to that little role. By 1975, Nocturnal Maneuvers had somewhat improved his fortunes. It was directed by Arthur Penn, and Gene Hackman played the lead role of a private investigator looking for a missing adolescent. Woods played Quentin, a mechanic, musician, who was destined for trouble. Young and boisterous, he was always prepared to swat fists when words failed. There was a wild, surprising spark in his scenes. Penn appreciated that aspect of him and even complimented his unvarnished edge. The film had a more realistic feel because the house where Quentin was filmed belonged to Phil Kaufman, who had been Graham Parsons' road manager. Woods was able to demonstrate his versatility with night moves rather than being restricted to the same kinds of parts. Critics and audiences realized at last that he was more than just another grizzled face. With The Onion Field, he made his true breakthrough in 1979. He portrayed Gregory Powell, the perpetrator of LAPD officer Ian Campbell's 1963 murder. It was based on the 1973 book by Joseph Wambaugh, which included letters from Powell himself as well as real court transcripts. In order to be ready, Woods isolated himself in a hotel room and read Powell's works repeatedly until he became enraged with the character. Far too far down. He was so severely affected by the character that he had to attend treatment after filming. Viewers were equally affected by the movie. He received high marks from reviewers, including third place for supporting actor in the New York Film Critics Circle and a Golden Globe nomination. When Powell was on the verge of being paroled in 1982, a television broadcast of the film sparked popular outcry and prevented his release because it was so effective. Powell was incarcerated until his death in 2008 at the age of 79. Woods entered something new and bold just a few years later, in 1983. Drone Video. The film, which was directed by David Cronenberg, focused on hallucinations, bodily horror, and the fear of media permeating real life. Max Runn, portrayed by Woods, was a TV executive who became insane after learning about a channel that included mind control and torture. He preserved the bulky prosthetic stomach slit he wore as a memento. Shooting the scenes was difficult. The length of them was considerable. They felt uneasy. He once quipped that he was just the slit's carrier and no longer an actor. In the moment of the electrocution, Cronenberg even played him because Woods was afraid of the shock rigs. Nevertheless, he forced himself. Later on, Videodrome became a cult classic, and one of the reasons it's still talked about is Woods' brave performance. He played Max in the lengthy epic Once Upon a Time in America, directed by Sergio Leone in 1984. Long shots and 16-hour days characterized the production. Italy for months. To delve into Max's deceptive, paranoid mentality, Woods employed a methodical approach. He and Robert Dyro were really at odds over it. Their scenes were strong and eerie because of the friction that was captured on camera. A 15-minute standing ovation was given to the film when it debuted at Cannes in 1984. However, the US version was shortened to 2 hours 19 minutes from 3 hours 49 minutes. Despite having a budget of about $30 million, the shortened version failed, making less than $6 million globally. Despite this, critics praised Woods for one of the best performances in the movie. He collaborated once more with Oliver Stone in Salvador 2 years later. Richard Bohl, a journalist who survived the Salvadoran Civil War, was portrayed by Woods. The risk was too great to film in El Salvador, so they scouted the battle zones and then shot in Mexico. The film chronicled actual incidents, such as later Ricardo Sanfuio's 1985 assassination, which Stone saw as the beginning of an even more dire phase of the war. Woods gave the role his all. He asked inquiries, saw how tragedy altered people's perspectives, and examined combat correspondence. It was worth the effort. He won a Golden Globe and received his first Academy Award nomination for Salvador. The movie was described as being truthful, unvarnished, and terrifyingly near to reality. Promise, a 1987 television film for which Woods won an Emmy, followed. He did not take the role lightly and portrayed a man with significant mental issues. He visited a halfway home in Santa Monica, spoke with individuals with schizophrenia, and observed their tone, pace, and anxieties. The research made him tremble. The incident left him wounded, and he later described it as the most ideal and emotionally taxing task of his life. His performance became a model for many performers to follow, and the movie was commended for its authenticity and care. He appeared in Oliver Stone's 1995 movie Nixon as H.R. Haldiderman. Woods persuaded Stone to pick him instead of Ed Harris. He listened to White House recordings for hours in order to capture the cool, collected tone of Haldiderman's voice. A few of the film's monologues were nearly word-for-word matched to the original recordings. Nixon received mixed reviews when it debuted at Cannes in May 1995, but Woods' performance was noteworthy. It demonstrated how closely he worked with Stone to replicate the genuine Haldiderman, down to the motions and attire, and won him nominations for both the Screen Actors Guild and the Emmy. Soon later, in 1996, Woods was cast in one of his most challenging parts. In Ghosts of Mississippi, he portrayed Byron Dilbeck. The civil rights activist Medgar Evers was killed in 1963 by white supremacist Beckwith, who was found guilty. The production needed on-set security because Woods played the part with such terrifying dedication. Even some spectators became enraged, mistaking the performer for the character. The movie came out on December 20, 1996. Even though the film only made $13 million out of a $36 million budget, Woods' courtroom moments will never be forgotten. In addition to earning another Academy Award nod, he created one of the decade's most unsettling villain portrayals. Woods both appeared in and produced Another Day in Paradise in 1998. Based on actual criminals, he portrayed a drug-addicted robber, and the movie had a gritty independent vibe. His image as a producer suffered because it cost $4.5 million and only made roughly $1.03 million. The film traveled to Toronto and Venice, but behind-the-scenes tensions increased. Woods denied tampering with editing when director Larry Clark accused him of doing so, claiming he fulfilled his pledge to avoid the final cut. Despite the film's failure at the box office, it received positive reviews for its brutal reality. Woods displayed a distinct dark character in Martin, Music, Scorsese's Casino from 1995. He portrayed Lester Diamond, a cunning mob figure who thrived on intimidation and trickery. The huge skimming operations, Music, that drained millions from casinos were among the real-life occurrences from Las Vegas that were depicted in the novel. Many scenes were improvised by Woods, particularly the violent ones, and Sharon Stone was bruised by some of the tense moments. Casino is one of Scorsese's most reputable crime flicks, earning over $116 million worldwide. The plot was already full of danger, but Woods' contribution gave it more grit. But by 1999, he was indicted. An HBO movie on the most costly trial in American history is called the McMartin Trial. $15 million, 7 years, and countless charges. Woods played Danny Davis, the defense attorney. His insistence on truth caused him and filmmaker Mick Jackson to disagree, particularly on how courtroom sequences ought to play out. The movie contended that the trial had become a witch. Fear of the masses drove the hunt. Woods even advocated for script revisions, treating the part as a duty. He was nominated for a Primetime Emmy for his portrayal, which also served as a reminder that he always sought authenticity, even if it caused set tremors. During the 1990s and the beginning of the 2000s, James Woods moved through television as if he owned the space. He led a witty HBO drama for a year. The next, he was transforming a TV movie into a topic of discussion for weeks. Audiences always followed him as he alternated between dark characters and music, gentler, more poignant ones. His efforts consistently earned him nominations for Emmys. The ratings for his shows continued to be strong. His tendency to switch lines at the last minute occasionally led to conflict with executives. However, the manner he brought scenes to life won over viewers. He gradually created the type of television that challenged conventions and provoked discussion. And for almost 40 years, people were familiar with his name. He was known to be intelligent, erratic, boisterous, honest, or all of these traits at once. When he entered the recording booth for Disney's Hercules in 1997, that same enthusiasm transferred over into animation. He transformed Hades into a fast-paced, chaotic figure once he began to voice the character. Because he improvised so many lines, directors were unable to foresee his next musical statement. Even the line, "I am the Lord of the Dead," was something he made up as he went along. It stunned everyone at first. They then burst out laughing. Later on, it was contributing to the film's success. Many attributed that spark to Woods, and Hercules hit $250 million worldwide. He continued to advocate for creative freedom behind the scenes. However, Hades' style impacted the way cartoon villains were written as a result of that push and pull. Then, in 2000, HBO released Dirty Pictures, a movie that directly inserted itself into the debate about free expression in America. Woods portrayed Dennis Berry, the director of the museum in charge of displaying the photographs of Robert Mapplethorpe. He infused the courtroom sequences with actual fire. During one protest scenario, extras even undressed, which made headlines, music, all around the world. Since Woods had already discussed censorship in public, the role was a natural fit for him. The movie attracted millions of viewers and spurred discussions on the boundaries and rights of art. In addition to earning him an Emmy nomination, his performance served as a reminder of the potency of television when it embraced difficult realities. During the 2006 to 2008 run of Shark, he played Sebastian Stark, a shrewd defense lawyer who stretched all the boundaries. At the time, the show was one of Fox's biggest hits, drawing in about 10 million viewers each week. Woods continued to give the conversation his unique twist. He almost crossed the line when he compared politicians to used car salesmen and businessmen in one scene, but the fans loved it so much that they retained it. The show became addictive because of his quickness, wit, and confidence in court. Woods' charismatic quest for everything made it difficult to turn away, which is why Shark worked. In 2011, he was cast by HBO as Richard Full during the collapse of Lehman Brothers in the film Too Big to Fail. Woods researched insider stories and interviews, constructing each scene around actual events such as the heated meeting on September 14, 2008. "I am not selling at a loss," for example, was taken straight from the leader's real statements. His portrayal, which got him a nomination for a Satellite Award, encapsulated the terror and coldness of the moment. The movie became a manual for those who wanted to know what actually transpired during the meltdown and why it was so important. Only a few years prior, in 1999, he had displayed a different side of himself in The Virgin Suicides. Here, he portrayed Mr. Lisbon, a distraught and bewildered parent. Fans were taken aback by how quiet, emotional, and gentle it was. Drawing on his own experiences of bereavement, Woods prepared for weeks. The movie became a cult favorite and brought in over $30 million. His ability to step into something delicate and let go of the harsh edges made his performance stand out. He experienced his own storms in his own life. His marriage to Catherine Morrison took place on August 31, 1980. Their divorce was finalized on September 20, 1983, after just 5 months of dating. When he was filming Against All Odds in 1984, rumors of problems followed him, creating headlines that heightened the noise of their breakup. Next came his June 2, 1989, marriage to Sarah Owen. It lasted for 10 months. November 1989 saw their separation, and in April 1990 they formalized their divorce. People blamed his long shooting hours and relentless work for everything's breakdown. From 1997 till 2000, he was engaged to Missy Kreider. The age gap attracted a lot of attention, and they had been dating since 1993. Kreider was in her 20s, while Woods was in his 50s. Music. He defended the connection, but his schedule and her need for stability didn't mesh well. Even though it happened in private, the tabloids reported about their discreet breakup in 2000. Then, in 2013, he made news again when he dated 19-year-old Kristen Boggas. There was a 46-year age disparity. Another wave of conversation resulted. While detractors retaliated, Woods posted about the relationship online and defended it. He affirmed that it was true. The arguments simply intensified, adding to his lengthy history of public music scandals. In 2021, at the age of 74, he married Sarah Miller, and everything changed. He was private this time. No messy coverage, no turmoil in the public eye. Friends reported that she helped him overcome emotional difficulties and health problems. Woods never had biological children, and he spent much of his time with her and her grown children away from the spotlight. After decades of upheaval, it became a tranquil, stable chapter for him. He still managed to get himself into trouble, of course. He tweeted in June 2016 that all of the ISIS militants were using American-made iPhones. On the internet, the claim went viral. Apple vowed to take legal action. The claim was refuted by experts as untrue. For disseminating it, he was banned from Twitter. It demonstrated how a single tweet might have a significant impact. Then another storm struck in 2018. He filed a $10 million lawsuit against Ableist, an anonymous Twitter user, in July 2015 for making a false accusation that he was addicted to cocaine. Courts declined to disclose the identity of the user. After learning of the man's passing, Woods tweeted "Good riddance, music," and even expressed his hope that the man would die yelling his name. People all over the world were stunned. It became one of the most talked about incidents in his social media existence and demonstrated the extent of his rage at times. He continued to speak out during the 2020 election. He made repeated accusations of voter fraud, and his posts were fact-checked and warned. His account was once more suspended. He sued Twitter in 2022, alleging that the platform targeted conservatives and censored him. In addition to sparking new discussions about online free expression, the lawsuit placed him on an increasing list of public personalities opposing platform restrictions. He was on TV once more in September 2025, during the wildfire season in California. He added that, music, budget cuts almost wrecked his house and blamed the state's administration. Rebuttals from scientists and environmental specialists focused on long-term environmental problems including climate change. Woods took advantage of the occasion to make a political statement, and as the fires grew more intense, the debate became more heated. His 2017 public feud with Amber Tamblyn also came up frequently. In reference to the Me Too movement, she shared a message online. Woods retorted that she was lying. She described him as insane. Their conversation went viral, evolving into a larger dispute about harassment, belief, and Hollywood's treatment of these stories. Woods got more involved in voice acting when his acting career declined. Video games like Grand Theft Auto San Andreas and Family Guy both included him. At times, he claimed that his conservative views caused Hollywood to blacklist him. In a 2018 interview, he even admitted that he declined a Family Guy episode because he believed that comedy had become corrupted by antipathy for his morals. He claimed that he had stopped getting big movie offers, with the exception of a brief cameo in Oppenheimer in 2016. His voice parts put him in the spotlight, but his divisive internet persona compounded things. Music. At the age of 78, he was battling hypertension by 2025. In the past, he discussed lengthy workdays, stress, and little sleep on programs like Sharp. Everything added up. He was kept on medicine by doctors. He continued to communicate with millions of people on social media, though. His health issues served as a reminder of the damage that decades in the spotlight can do to an individual. His life was filled with ups and downs. People estimated his net worth to be between $8 million and $20 million in 2025. He had made a lot of money from real estate. He profited $5 million from a property in Beverly Hills. He spent over $4.3 million on a Pacific Palisades estate in 2017. Then it was destroyed in early 2025 by the Palisades Fire. Everything was not covered by insurance. He was severely impacted financially and emotionally. Even wealthy people can lose everything in a flash. His legacy is complex, though. In an interview with Megyn Kelly in 2024, he claimed to still be acquainted with leftist celebrities like Whoopi Goldberg. Those who thought he had been cut off from Hollywood altogether were taken aback by it. It demonstrated that some partnerships endured throughout controversial years and loud political viewpoints. Talent, conflict, comedy, antagonism, sensitivity, and paradox became all part of his story. Additionally, it demonstrated that public altercations, blacklisting, and cancel culture never fully reveal a person's life.